sensitive data is more critical than ever before. But what happens when breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database. Organizations are required to be more critical than ever before. But what happens when data breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database to report incidents involving the unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of personal information. Why organizations need a data breach register? Mandatory reporting. Organizations must promptly notify the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and affected individuals in the event of a data breach. This ensures swift action to mitigate risks and safeguard personal information. Detailed records. The register maintains detailed records of reported breaches, including the nature of the incident, the type of data compromised, and the remedial actions taken by the organization. Compliance and enforcement. Non-compliance with data breach reporting requirements can result in significant penalties and reputation damage for organizations. The register helps enforce regulatory standards and promotes a culture of data protection. Here is a step-by-step guide on how to use the Data Breach Documentation Register. About the organization. Fill the name of the organization. Fill the registration number issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission. Fill the location where the organization is physically situated or conducts its operations. Fill the official email address of the organization. From the list below, pick the most appropriate based on the nature of your core business activity. Data Protection Officer. Fill the name of the designated Data Protection Officer. Fill the email address of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the phone number of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the Data Protection Officer's acquired data protection privacy certifications. Details of data breach. A unique number that indicates where in the register a data breach is reported and documented. A unique identification number or code assigned to each documented data breach. Specify the exact date and time the data breach occurred if known. Specify the exact date and time the data breach was discovered. Provide the number of data subjects affected. If the number is not known, give an approximate number. Description of breach. Explain the process by which a security breach resulted in the unintentional or deliberate loss, alteration, disclosure, or access to personal data. Measures taken or to be taken. Did you inform all individuals affected? Indicate yes or no. List other regulators informed. When did you first notify the NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and time. Remedial action. Kindly state the remedial action taken. To place an order, kindly visit dataprotectionacademy.com NG-store or call 0816.
It's me, Ella. Well, a digital version of me, just a bit older. Amazing what technology can do these days, isn't it? All you need are a couple of pictures, like the ones you share on social media, where they can be taken and used by everybody. I know for you these pictures are just memories, but for others, they are data. And for me, maybe the beginning of a horrible future. A future where my identity can be stolen just like that. Where I can go to prison for things that I would never do. Imagine my credit score being destroyed, Dad. Or my voice copied to scam you, Mom.
Mom, I'm in trouble.
I need you to send me money, please. I don't want to become a meme, humiliated by everyone at school.
Kill yourself, you fucking loser.
And I certainly don't want this. What you share online is like a digital footprint that will follow me around for the rest of my life. I'm telling you this because I know you love me and would never do anything to harm me. So please, Mom, please, Dad, protect my virtual privacy.
Good afternoon and welcome to Module 8 of our CISO's training. Today we'll be looking at insider threat. So let's get started. So what is insider threat? Insider threat simply refers to security risk posed by individuals within an organization. Take for example your employees, your contractors, your business associates. They have access to data, personal data and sensitive data. They can pose risk to your institution. So any security risk caused by them or due to their negligence will be seen as an insider threat. So there are different types of insider threat. Take for example, we have the malicious insider threat. These are threats that are done intentionally to harm the organization. We also have negligent insiders. These are unintentional compromise due to the employee or contractor carelessness. And we have compromise insiders. These are people working within an organization that their data, such as their email address, may have been collected by fraudsters and used to commit fraudulent actions, compromising the system. Take, for example, their stolen credentials like login details. Some of these details may have been sold on the dark web due to their negligence, or maybe they stored their credentials on a browser, and that aided a form of attack that is used against the organization. So that would be a compromised insider. So now there are different examples of insider threats. So let's look at this one. This cost the NSA a whole lot of issues. Edward Snowden in 2013 revealed mass surveillance data about different surveillance programs being carried out. That is a typical example of insider threat. We also have the case of Morrison's data breach in 2014, where an employee who wasn't happy leaked out payroll data up to 100,000 staff. And we also have another one in 2015 by Anthem, whereby an insider allowed external hackers to access up to 78 million records through compromised credentials. So, what indicates when an insider threat is occurring? Now, let's look at the non-technical behavior. Now, there are times whereby some employee attitude will change. Maybe they are dissatisfied at work. So that can be a sign, because you may not use a technology to be able to detect this, but your emotional intelligence will reveal to you that this person is changing in terms of attitude. Maybe the person shows sign of frustration or form of dissatisfaction. Then you also have issues like unexplained financial gain. Take for example, somebody start living a very expensive lifestyle, and you know the salary range of this person. Maybe that person is selling data to other people for his own financial benefit. Then you also have violation of policies, taking into cognizance an organization that has established policies and procedures. Then you see somebody clearly deliberating ignoring these policies. Take, for example, a clear desk policy, a clear screen policy, and you see an employee violating this. This should be an indication. Then you also have attempts to bypass security. Now, every employee will have their roles and obligation, and that will also entail that they are given access to certain areas within the organization. So when you see somebody that is not supposed to be in a particular building or unit trying to bypass security, that should be an indication of a likelihood of an insider threat. Then when you see issues like frequent absence from work, maybe the person is staying late rather than close by say 6 p.m. or 4 p.m., the person is closing by 9. Do you get it? That could also be an indication that an insider threat might be occurring. Then we have social indicators like sudden isolation. The person becomes withdrawn, or frequent conflict with colleagues. These are indication that this person may be having an abnormal work attitude due to the fact that he or she may be aiding an insider threat. So this is something that occurs in any organization, irrespective of the size or location of the organization. Now, when you see a drastic change in attitude towards the organization, maybe an employee that was very loyal before start exhibiting some traits that are negative, this should also be an indication that, see, we have to scrutinize this person to be able to avert any potential insider threat. Then we have issues of unwarranted data access. When an employee begins to access data beyond their job role, or they take advantage of the privilege given to them to do things outside their core job role. So this will be an indication of a potential insider threat. So this is not new. And while it's even more difficult is that it can be aided with technology and without technology. And this person already has key access to the organization. So it is very, very difficult to detect this if you don't plan and have policies and procedures to detect insider threat. And the effect is always devastating because the person will have the data, and the person can sell this data or share it for other reasons, which we will find out in the course of the training. So when you are looking at your cybersecurity framework, you also need to envisage insider threat and plan towards it so that you can detect it before it becomes a very difficult thing to handle. Now, under the non-technical indicators, you also have the case of connection with competitors. When you see employees engaging with your competitors, having meetings, going for interview with competitors, that is also an indication of a potential insider threat, because the person will take most of the information you have, especially when the person work in finance and IT. So these are critical departments, including legal also. So when you see your employee or co-worker having close relationship with competitors in your industry, you have to be very vigilant. And when you have people sending frequent email to their personal email, not their official email now, maybe from their official email, they are pushing emails to their uh, personal email, that is something you should also look at. So let's look at the technical indicators of insider threat. Now, abnormal login. Now, take for example an employee logs into your application after work hours in the middle of the night. That should be a suspicion. Why are you accessing this at this time of the night? So these are things you should look out for. And you cannot do this if you don't have technical controls like audit trail and audit log monitoring solutions. When you see multiple login failure, maybe that person account has been compromised, because ideally the person should know the username and the password. So when you see repeated failed login, that is also a sign of a compromised account. Now, when you also see employees accessing sensitive data outside their job role from your audit trail, you are not supposed to work with this data. Now you are trying to have access to this data. That is also a technical indication that an insider threat may be occurring. And when you see employees downloading large amount of data, take for example, they are exporting all customer record. Why are they exporting all customer record? What do they really need it for? Are they working in marketing? Are they working in finance? Do they really need this data? Because Why on earth will you download large amount of data? For what purpose? Is there a need? Were you given permission to do that? So these are little ways you can detect insider threat before it becomes a critical problem. Because when you look at data breaches and cyber threats, the most impactful are those that are insider powered because they have majority of the information to work with. Another scenario will be um, connecting personal devices to the corporate network without permission. It's also a red flag. If you have a work environment whereby BYOD is not enforced, and you also have issues whereby employees are not allowed to work with their personal system, and you see someone connecting his own personal system to the corporate network, that should be a red flag. And when employees start using file sharing platforms to extract data from the organization, that is also a cause of concern. Things like Google Drive and Dropbox, because these tools may not be on the whitelisted application for your organization. But when you see people start making use of it in a large scale, then that should also give you an indication that they are trying to export corporate data and maybe use it for their personal need or sell it to competitors. So, as the Chief Information Security Officer, you have to know how to ensure that employees don't violate the policies and procedures of the organization. And you should also be able to detect all these potential insider threats as fast as possible. Now, under the technical, you also look at creating unauthorized accounts to access sensitive areas of the network or database. Take, for example, someone who has IT permission. He or she doesn't want to make use of his own account. The person creates a dummy account, and that person is working with that dummy account to be able to capture data, export data, or access data. That is also something that should raise a red flag. Now, when you see employees disabling security tools like antivirus, firewall, or any endpoint security solution when they want to make use of data, that should also be a red flag. When you see employees using unauthorized software, that is also a cause of concern. So you may ask the key question: will insider threats be visible in my organization? The answer is yes. Any organization that have human beings working will be exposed to insider threat. And the funny thing about insider threat is that the damage is always massive because it's someone who is trusted and that person has access to corporate data. So employees using remote desktop solutions like TeamViewer, AnyDesk could also be a sign if those are not on the whitelisted application, because they may gain access to the corporate system and that can also be used to access data outside working hours. So now let's go to the aspect of email activity. If you notice that a certain employee is sending corporate data to his personal email account, you have to monitor why. What kind of data is the person sending to his personal email account? Is the data encrypted? Because this same employee may go to the extent of encrypting the data so that even when you want to do an audit, you will not have access to the data that has been exported. So you have to monitor the emails of employee on a routine basis so that you can detect if there's any fraudulent activity occurring. Now, when employees begin to make use of VPN and anonymization solutions, a good example is the Tor browser. That should also be a red flag. And if you notice employees are engaging with dark web solutions, that is also a very big red flag, because why on earth will you be using tools that can be used to compromise security of computers? So when you notice that a particular employee have visited sites that are known to be malicious, that should also call for a cause of concern for the organization. Now, if you notice, after somebody browse, the person deletes the browsing history, or when the person access your system, the person delete all activities. That is also a very big red flag, because why will you want to delete your past history on the corporate network? And when you see a case of data integrity, maybe employees are altering data, backdating data, that is also a case you should look out for. So it is not that when you see all these red flag that it means that insider threat is occurring, but that should raise a suspicion. So somebody may do this without even having the intention to carry out insider threat, but for a security reason, that is understandable. But it should raise a cause of concern for the CISO to look at and say, let us do a due diligence on this. Are we in any way exposed? Is this employee trying to breach our security? And that's why it's always good for established policies and procedures to be implemented so that people will not act out of negligence. So now we'll move over to the key risk factors for insider threat. Now, one of the key risk factor may be external pressure. Maybe somebody is struggling financially and somebody comes and say, I can pay your mortgage. I can pay the loan you have. I know you are owing the bank, but this is what you need to do for me. You need to take this flash drive and insert it on the MD desktop. That's all I want from you, and I'm going to pay up your mortgage. Maybe the person is also having issues, and someone walk and say, see, uh, all I need is your client's record. Nothing more, nothing less. If you can give me the client records and the person goes export this data, client name, client email, client phone number, and say, okay, here is it. And I'm going to give you this amount of money. So you need to look at employees. When they are going through financial struggle, they are vulnerable. It could also be a case of blackmail. Maybe somebody has information they don't want to go public. That can also lead to the person becoming a threat to the organization. So you need to look at your employees, make sure you take care of their welfare, make sure you have their concern, you make sure you understand what they are going through so that they don't do this from a point of where they are being coerced. Do you get it? Then there's also a case of lack of proper monitoring. And when you don't have multi-factor authentication in your system, that creates a big problem. Because even if an employee want to access data, there should be some form of OTP, some form of controls to be able to say, okay, yes, you access this data, and you can map that with that employee. And if it's not the employee, somebody is trying to access the data using a compromised credential, there should be an OTP to also stop that person as a second level authentication. Then, when you have cases of dissatisfaction with management and the work environment is not good, that could also be a very big risk factor. Then you also have case of granting excessive access to employee. It should be on a role-based basis, whereby based on what you do, that is what you can see on the corporate infrastructure. So what are the solutions? Because we found out the problem, we should also provide solutions. So one of the key solutions is role-based access control. Take, for example, Microsoft Active Directory. Based on that, every person who has an account on your corporate infrastructure will be limited to what they need to do. So implementing a role-based access procedure would be ideal. Multi-factor authentication will also protect against unauthorized access, and that will also limit the exploitation of compromised credential. You also have data encryption. Yes, employees can export data, but if the data is encrypted, it becomes useless to them, especially when they are not into the technical aspect. So if you export all employees' record or customer record, it's just going to be something you can't access. So using a BitLocker or 5 vault can also help with that. Then doing background check. Yeah, before you employ people, you need to do detailed pre-employment background check to know what's the past history of this employee, where has the person worked, and what was the working culture of this person over that period. So that if the person has any dubious work history, even if you are employing the person, you'll be more cautious. Then you have policies and procedures. So there are certain policies and procedures that you should have and implement. Take, for example, your social media policy. This will regulate how employees can discuss company issues without sharing sensitive information. Also, you have the accepted use policy that outlines acceptable and prohibited use of company resources. You also have the clear screen policy, which will enable that employees avoid taking screenshot of desktop screens. You know, now with your banking app, you can also ensure that screenshots are deactivated. Even on WhatsApp, you can also deactivate screenshot. And one of the benefits of a clear screen policy is that it will ensure that once an employee is not on his or her desk at that time, the system is either having a screensaver or the system shuts down, so that people who are just walking past will not have access to the system and information on it. So you have email usage policy. Now, this will also help restrict sending sensitive data uh, through the email, and also ensure that there are appropriate guidelines when using the email, especially those ones that are domiciled with your domain. Then you have data classification policy, so that you can know the security of data. Is it public? Is it internal? Is it confidential? And your password management policy is also very key, because that will also ensure that every employee, every contractor, every third party vendor have strong password while accessing your systems. Then you also have employee training, which is very, very key. In everything we've said, if you don't train your employee to give them the best information when it comes to cybersecurity, you'll have issues. So you have to invest in your employees. You have to lobby management to ensure that trainings are done routinely, so that every employee has the basic knowledge when it comes to cybersecurity, social engineering, ransomware, phishing attack, so they will not become victims. So, with that being said, in summary, insider threats can affect any organization, from multinationals to SMEs to little businesses as low as 2 to 3 staff. So, you need to ensure that you monitor your employees, make sure they are trained, make sure there are policies and procedures they need to know and follow, so they don't put the organization at risk. We'll continue our modules tomorrow. We'll be looking at module 9. And after we are done with all the modules, you'll be eligible to take your certification exams. So we'll also guide you on how to take that exam, and that will also make this procedure for capacity building a huge success, because after your training, you need to validate that yes, you've understood all what we've been saying from module 1 up to module 12, which we'll be rounding up by Friday. So you take your exams and have that certificate as an evidence that you are knowledgeable in this area. So just as usual, we'll go to the quiz section just to validate what we have learned today. So the first question is, what is an insider threat? So we have option A, option B, option C, and D. So you can drop the most appropriate answer on the comment section, and we'll look at it if it's correct, so that we can move on. Meanwhile, don't forget that all these materials are posted on the WhatsApp group. I know a lot of people will be like, we want to have the past materials. We've been sharing those materials via the WhatsApp group and via your dedicated WhatsApp numbers in the past. I will continue doing that. But join the WhatsApp group so you can get these materials faster, because it's more easier to post it on the group for people to have access to instantly. So yeah, a lot of people chose option B, which is also the best and the most appropriate answer. So we'll go to the next one, which is who leaked classified NSA data in 2013, exposing mass surveillance program? Who leaked classified data? So we have option B again. Keep your answers coming. Okay, we have someone with option A. I think option A should be the correct one. Yes, it's Edward Snowden. Yeah, that's the most appropriate. You can go and read more about him on Wikipedia or Google. So the next question, what does role-based access control aim to do? What does role-based access control aim to do? Okay, we have option A, we have option B, we have option B again, we have option B. So let's see. Option B is the most appropriate. So the next question, what is the first step in responding to an insider threat incident? What was the first step in responding to an insider threat incident? Don't forget, you should subscribe to our YouTube page, because once we are done with this first stage of training, you've taken your exams, there are many more programs that will be lining up. So in order for you not to miss out, it's good you subscribe so you can get notification. So we have option A, we have option B. Let's see. The answer is C. You isolate the insider. Right. So the most appropriate answer is C. You isolate the insider. So the next question is, which technical indicator might suggest an insider threat? Which technical indicator might suggest an insider threat? Okay, the answer is A, multiple login failure. Good. So you can follow all our social media handles. We're on Instagram, we're on X, we're also on Thread, we're on TikTok, and of course, we're on YouTube. We're having this training via YouTube. So tomorrow, same time, we'll continue with Module 9, and I hope to see every participant join that module. We are going to be learning something new. And just as promised, by Friday, we would have reached Module 12 and done with this whole program. Then you can take your exams. But if you have any question, you can drop it on the comment section. We'll have 2 minutes for questions. If not, we wrap up. But for the meantime, let's just have this video play while we wait for comments.
4. Sensitive data is more critical than ever before. But what happens when data breaches occur? The Data Breach Register serves as a centralized database where organizations are required to report incidents involving the unauthorized access, disclosure, or loss of personal information. Why organizations need a data breach register? Mandatory reporting. Organizations must promptly notify the Nigeria Data Protection Commission and affected individuals in the event of a data breach. This ensures swift action to mitigate risks and safeguard personal information. Detailed records. The register maintains detailed records of reported breaches, including the nature of the incident, the type of data compromised, and the remedial actions taken by the organization. Compliance and enforcement. Non-compliance with data breach reporting requirements can result in significant penalties and reputation damage for organizations. The Register helps enforce regulatory standards and promotes a culture of data protection. Here is a step-by-step guide on how to use the Data Breach Documentation Register. About the organization. Fill the name of the organization. Fill the registration number issued by the Corporate Affairs Commission. Fill the location where the organization is physically situated or conducts its operations. Fill the official email address of the organization. From the list below, pick the most appropriate based on the nature of your core business activity. Data Protection Officer. Fill the name of the designated Data Protection Officer. Fill the email address of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the phone number of the Data Protection Officer. Fill the Data Protection Officer's acquired data protection privacy certifications. Details of data breach. A unique number that indicates where in the register a data breach is reported and documented. A unique identification number or code assigned to each documented data breach. Specify the exact date and time the data breach occurred if known. Specify the exact date and time the data breach was discovered. Provide the number of data subjects affected. If the number is not known, give an approximate number. Description of breach. Explain the process by which a security breach resulted in the unintentional or deliberate loss, alteration, disclosure, or access to personal data. Measures taken or to be taken. Did you inform all individuals affected? Indicate yes or no. List other regulators informed. When did you first notify the NDPC of the data breach? If yes, indicate the date and time. Remedial action. Kindly state the remedial action taken. To place an order, kindly visit dataprotectionacademy.com NG store or call 0816 82444.
So thank you, everyone. A question was asked if the exam is free or we are to pay some fees. Now, the exam is free, but if you need a digital version of your certificate, you may be required to pay a token. It's really not going to be much, but the exam is free. So once you take your exam, you pass. If you so desire to get a certification, that is your certificate in soft copy, then you may be required to pay a little token for it, but the exam is absolutely free. You'll be guided on how to take the exams and how to get your digital certificate in the course of the training. So thank you, everyone, and stay safe. Don't forget, we are going to post this learning resource on the WhatsApp group. Please download those content so that it's not when you want to take your exams, you start saying, where are my materials? Stay safe and be cybersecurity conscious. Thank you.